is Black money?
About economic liberation and
Mm.
freedom.
Critical conversations to invigorate our communities through Black-led CDFIs.
But most importantly, we want people to create wealth.
When we look at our communities, we still see a big disinvestment.
Going from resourceful to resourced.
CDFIs have that high touch. They understand their customers. They know how to reach out to those customers. They stay in touch with those customers.
We are trying to create job makers and not just job takers.
Yeah, I've even heard it said recently that great leaders don't lead from the top down, they lead from the bottom up because they're actually lifting everybody.
We have to do more than just being a regular lender.
Don't give me this story about if I teach you how to fish. Give me some money.
What's going on? LinkedIn, Justin Minott here from the African American Alliance of CDFI CEOs. And I have with me a very special guest today, Mr. Paul Jones, CEO of ProsperUs Detroit. Now, with the last name Jones and you have a one-syllable first name, it's hard for me not to say Paul Jones, who, but we're not going to. Now, for my listeners, who got that? That's what I want to know. Chime in the chat. We want to know who's in the digital building. We always love doing this on LinkedIn Live. So hop in the chat so that you can connect to your network here and our growing family at the Alliance. But Paul, so excited to have you here.
I am excited to be here and really appreciative of this platform, Justin.
Oh, of course, man. Of course. We got to do it. Got to do it. Now, Paul, first and most important question, I believe. Who is Paul Jones? Like at the core, the essence of who you are, what is Paul Jones really about?
Yeah, I'm an advocate for small businesses, especially small businesses that come from communities I came from. And I didn't grow up in economic development. I didn't grow up in the nonprofit space. I grew up as an entrepreneur, and entrepreneurship was my pathway across the economic bow tie. We talking like family now, so I would say from ashy to classy.
Yeah.
So, and then when I come to this work, I come in with that level of focus. Like, how do we promote this as a pathway towards to economic liberation, towards wealth generation opportunities? So again, I didn't know what LMI was. I didn't know what SETI business was. I didn't know all that stuff, but I just knew where I grew up. There weren't that many pathways. So I come like lifelong entrepreneur, and I grew up in Detroit, left Detroit like many others to pursue entrepreneurial opportunities. And I had several businesses. Most of them failed. A few of them succeeded. And it's exactly. The life lessons came from those that failed. And also having an understanding of what it takes to do the work, right? What's expected of you, and then how do we build an infrastructure of support? So that's what I bring to the table. One thing I like to throw out there is that, one of my longest periods of my entrepreneurship tenure was in West Africa. So I spent about 10 years building a telecom company in West Africa right before I moved back home to Detroit in 2017. So I just scaled a business. I just came off that high, and my mission was to come back and help all the other businesses that I knew scale up, like to have the same level of opportunity. And that's what led me to the work. And then I came into this whole concept of what CDFI was. I didn't know what CDFI was. I didn't know how to spell CDFI until recently, right? So that piece of it, I didn't know about the nonprofit space or the industrial complex of philanthropic money. Like all this stuff is new to me. But I just think that if it's new to me, and I am a seasoned entrepreneur, all the others who have their heads are on the grind. Like, how do we make sure that we democratize these resources so it helps other people? So that's me, in a very small nutshell, and that's what I'm about.
I love it. You are just a great soul. I'm so glad to be having this interview with you. What makes you come alive? Like, what's the stuff inside you that you're like, man, when I'm doing this or when I'm engaging the world in this way, it just makes me feel the most alive? What is that for you?
Yeah, just enabling people, like enabling that spirit. And I think, there is a certain DNA that's required to be an entrepreneur, but at my heart, the bottom of my soul, I know that that opportunity, that grit, that passion, that talent is in all the communities, but the resources aren't. So how do we, how do we make sure that those resources are aligned with where those talent pools are? Because for me, I think that if our mission, which is to close that wealth gap, we have to focus on the most marginalized communities and make sure that those resources, the entrepreneurs who are out there in the grind, that they have a way to convert their hustle into a business. And once you have a business, then you can start really talking that talk about generational wealth. But we're out in the field and we're focused, like, as an entrepreneur, we're focused on the hustle part of it because that's all we know, and we don't see those pathways. So how do we convert that? So I don't even know if that was, I forget what the question was. Maybe that
was beautiful. And you're dropping gems.
Surprised me.
I love the line about, the talent is there, but the funding is not, or the resources are not. And matching the funding to the talent, I believe, is beautiful, which segues into where I want to go next. This is all about Black liberation. We're talking about this and the pathways to get there. But what does Black liberation mean to you? I love the diversity of answers that we get. What does Black liberation mean to you?
So to me, it means that you have the means to, one, provide for your family, and that whole concept of generational wealth. And you have the means to cover your expenses, to pursue your endeavors, and you don't have to do it within the systemic, pathways that are out there. So you can, you have a business that's generating revenue for you, or cash flow for you. You have housing and real estate that's generating cash flow for you. So you are liberated from that grind of, I have to go out there and work every day so I can achieve, I can pay my bills. And when we're able to produce an opportunity for us to do that as individuals and for our families, that's huge. And what we see in this environment is the opposite, where most people, not only are they just not able to pay their bills, but they end up in debt. They end up in servitude, financial servitude.
Wow.
So I come up with a definition by looking at the opposite: liberation, servitude. Servitude is you're being so far in debt because of student loans or because of any other type of debt that you've accumulated, that you're not able to to look beyond what you're seeing day to day. You're just in survival mode, and liberation is the opposite of that to me.
Right, we're talking about going from surviving to thriving. I love that.
And creation, being able to create.
Right. So what is ProsperUs doing about it, right? You've come into this and bring us a little bit more into that journey now, a couple years at ProsperUs Detroit. What are you doing about this? And tell us about coming on board and what that's been like for you.
Yeah, I mean, so I just took on the role of CEO of ProsperUs about 7 months ago. Mm-hmm. And prior to that, I was working with another CDFI that in coordination with our local community foundation on how to provide resources to business support organizations that are helping small businesses. Mm-hmm. So I was working in that space for a while. Prior to that, I was the executive director of the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses Program, the Detroit chapter. Some people was like, you're a CEO of Goldman Sachs, and I was not a CEO of Goldman Sachs. $50 million a year. But I was providing different technical assistant, what we call technical assistants, but different educational services for entrepreneurs who are looking to go from, who are looking to scale and grow their businesses. Mm-hmm. So that, looking backwards, was my approach or my trajectory. But before that, from 2004 to 2018-ish, I was an entrepreneur.
Right.
I was eat what you kill. I was like, I was surviving based off my ability to create and generate something for myself and my employees. And my last experience, my most successful experience, like I said, was I co-founded and grew a telecommunications company in West Africa. At its peak, we were doing about 20 million in revenue and employed, scores of people. And that was my pathway to what we would call economic liberation. So that was, that's what drove me again. Like I would say, entrepreneurship was my salvation, was my liberator, and I want to pass that into others. Now, to answer your question about ProsperUs, ProsperUs is a amazing organization because we think entrepreneur first. So we think about how do we work with the entrepreneur in a meaningful way? How do we support the entrepreneur in their journey? And I would say that, we challenge ourselves to, again, being able to approach and support entrepreneurs that are usually most separated from resources. I think in economic terms, we call this economic development terms, we call this like LMI communities, or we call it what's the other one? Marginalized communities. Like, but the people who are so far away from the resources, and a lot of times they're separated. One, because they don't believe the resources are for them. Two, when they do hear about the resources, they don't have all of the documentation or all stuff, like the hoops that you got to jump through. They don't have all that in place. And then once they are able to get all that stuff in place, again, they're just not trustful of where the resources are coming from. So at ProsperUs, we are very intentional about reaching the most, these type of business owners where they are. And we do this because we do provide capital, and we take different approaches to underwriting. We are intentionally, flexible. We always talk about, and for all my financial institutions out there, we always look at the 5 C's of credit. Many of the people we work with, they may only have 1 or 2 C's, right? They may not have any C's. So we work with them, help them get a couple more C's so they can attract other resources
and learn how to play this game.
But we also we understand that to do that, we have to provide the training and business support, whether it be one-on-one or cohort style training, in the communities where the business owners are comfortable, where they naturally, live, work, and play and operate their businesses. So we do a lot of technical assistance, is what we call, basically training of small businesses, but we do it in the community. We don't have many of them come to our office. So we try to meet them where they are. And then we also have a litany of one-on-one support services so that we can be very intentional about designing the support to meet you where you are. So that's what ProsperUs is in our activities. But I would say in the big picture, we think about this as radical changes or transformational radical changes that have to happen. So we don't look at this as we don't rest with just how do we help people navigate the infrastructures. How do we use our position, our platform as a CDFI to truly change the system itself, because the system still has some challenges. I mean, I think we can all agree to that. Right. And it's not the way I look at this. And I'll just give a quick anecdote. I have children who are of thriving age, and I have a Black son, right? And the question that one of the conversations you always have to have is, how do you navigate getting stopped by the police without something really bad happening, potentially fatal happening to you? And we teach our Black kids, this is what you do this, be your best behavior, don't look this way, don't make any doing herky jerky moves or whatever, be respectful. Right. And then you're able to survive that situation. And that's really important. But if we're thinking about systemic changes, it's like, how do we change it where we don't have to even have that discussion with the kids? How do we look at the most basic level, right? Wow. And that's how we look at how do we create systemic changes? Now, we still want my kids to be able to drive, but we also want to make sure there's a system that is more understanding and comprehensive and works for him and not against him. And that's how I equate the work and how we think about things at ProsperUs. We help entrepreneurs navigate the system, but we also advocate on behalf of the entrepreneurs and try to drive change to change the system itself. And that's where I think, it takes a high level of intentionality, We understand that we got to work in the moment to help entrepreneurs every day, right here, right now. But we also have to think bigger than this if we're trying to create systemic changes. And that's what we're about.
I love that analogy. That resonates so well. How are you doing both, right? You talked about kind of the technical assistance, the direct support, the immediate pieces that you're doing. On the advocacy side, what does that look like to radically advocate in this space as a CDFI, in this current landscape? What does that really look like for you all?
Yeah. So first, like I said, it takes a intentionality of reaching the business owners who have been most separated from resources. So I'll just give a couple of statistics and then I'll work my way into it. So last year, ProsperUs, we're a tiny CDFI, but we're small, but mighty and really active. But we approved over $1 million of loans, and that was to 50 business owners. So, average loan size of $25,000. This year, we're on track to approve over $2 million of loans and reach, 100 business owners.
Double your money and make it stack. Sorry, I don't know.
That's right.
I'm on the rap stuff.
Hey, we're gonna take a little. Oh man, so we're doing, but it's not just about the numbers; it's about who. And when you think about who, it's how many lives we touch, but then how have those entrepreneurs themselves, how have they been affected? So we did we had part of a alliance I'm in called the Build From Within Alliance. Shout out Build From Within. Those are my people, just like this alliance is my people. Did a survey, and it looked at the health and wellness of the entrepreneur itself. Like how many businesses that we work with were able to procure more secure housing, nutritious food, right? So these are things that you don't think about from a financial standpoint. How many of them have more financial literacy? So that's one we touch on. Then we look at credit scores, et cetera. So this is preparing people for the system, but it's looking at them, the entrepreneur, holistically. So to answer your question, one, we have to be out here doing the loans. We have to be intentional about reaching small business owners. We have to be prepared to be that first dollar in and be non-extractive along the way. But then on the other side, we have to position ourselves to touch and work it with as many entrepreneurs that are considered to be risky, that are considered to have all these other different stigmas attached to them, to say, hey, we're doing the work. And these are the needs of that constituency to make sure that they're able to climb that economic ladder. So we can't just keep on doing the same thing the same way and expect different results. And we have to start by, again, doing the loans, being involved in the community, and then taking our learnings, elevating it up to policymakers, elevating them up to different philanthropic partners, which we have some great philanthropic partners, and then elevating them up to like different state and governmental stakeholders, state and local government stakeholders who have the dollars and who have the funding to provide, but often may not have their ear to the ground like we have it. So it's taking those learnings, being active within, saying, if we could wave our magic wand, this is what it would look like to be non-extractive and to be radically supportive to our communities and to move the needle. Now, I said we don't have a magic wand, but what we do have is a few tricks up our sleeves. So we're able to take certain types of capital and retrofit it in a way that it's going to work for a small business. So I'll give it a couple examples. One, we were able to get a nice chunk of capital for lending. And then we had an organization, shout out Michigan Central, my homie Alondra. We put together a program where they did interest rate buy downs. So we're able to do 0% loans, right? And in certain communities, so we're still able to make our money, but what we heard from the community is that they needed cheaper capital. And then we stacked that with some of our SSBCI dollars. So the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, MEDC, and our friends over there, Amy Rencher is doing a great job. We were able to stack that money with a SSBCI loan guarantee. So now we're able to make loans that are guaranteed 80% and our interest and have no interest attached to them. So we're able to make, some of the most riskier loans. We're able to have some flexibility and we're having the guarantee. So we're protecting our balance sheet. It just takes intentionality though, man. Like the tools are out there, but you have to make up your mind that one, what do my people in my community need to better their position? How do I do that? And then how do I arrange all of my things? How do I pull out all tricks, all stops to make it work for them, right? Because it's all about thinking about from an economic, entrepreneur-centric mindset, not a banker mindset. You got to be responsible, but don't think about this like bankers. Don't try to iterate and say, hey, we should feel good about ourselves because we said no. We say yes when a lot of people say no. We have to think beyond that. Like, how do we not only just say yes, but how do we be radically supportive even after we say yes and reformat the capital to meet the needs of our community?
I hope y'all are listening. This is delicious. This is absolutely wonderful. I love this idea of continuing to stay radical and sustainable for your organization. Like you're talking about, okay, we're making these moves that are unprecedented, and we're securing our balance sheet at the same time, because a lot of times heart-centered organizations are not taking care of their own house in ways that allow them to continue to do the work, grow the work, amplify the work. They don't have their own oxygen mask on first, before assisting others. Talk to these heart-centered leaders. We have a lot of them tuning in, CDFI leaders, other nonprofit leaders in the space, about how to think about this, because I think too, your entrepreneur background, how you approach business and growing those seem to lend into this as well. So how would you advise someone in this mission first space to start thinking in some of the ways that you've been able to at ProsperUs?
Yeah, great question. And I appreciate how, how you succinctly say everything. It took me 15 minutes to say.
That's my day. This is what they pay me for over here. So
I'm just out here doing all stuff. But I would say the first thing is what you said specifically is that we don't have to choose either or.
Yeah.
Right. You don't have to say either I'm going to be mission or I'm going to be, the biggest CDFI out there. I believe you can do both. I believe you must do both if you are truly committed to what you're doing and supporting as many entrepreneurs as you can. I think that's a mandate, that you have to take really seriously. And then this goes back to the first thing is like how listening to your community. So don't go in here and saying we're starting off like bankers, and then how do we tweak it a little bit so that we're less bankerish, right?
Right. Yeah, that's not radical. We call that putting, well, can I say that here? Anyway, I love all my bankers. But we call that putting lipstick on a pig. Have you ever?
Hey, we always say, the first few months we got to beat the banker out of people so we can, actually get the work done. And I love the bankers too. I came from my early stage career, institutional finance background, and I get it, right? It's a different market. It's a different approach. But we have to say, we're not trying to iterate from that because you're never going to get there. You're always going to start with how do I be a banker but less bankerly or whatever the adjective would be, as opposed to what do the small businesses need, and then how do I construct my funding? How do I have real talk discussions with my philanthropic partners around this is what the community needs? How do I have real talk discussions with the government and municipality? When they're sitting on these ARPA dollars, like, hey, this is how you deploy it. And a lot of times they just need to hear it, and they need to see the data, hear the stories, and then, but you can't be mentally lazy. You have to be in there and saying, this is what the goal is. So, so my whole point is that you can start with thinking about what your community needs, and then going back and trying to figure out, if I had my perfect scenario, how would I create these lending products to be non-extractive, to democratize innovation, so to be forgiving if it needs to be, right? And to grow with the business owner. And then think about how do you you may have to synthetically create it, but how do you rearrange your balance sheet, your lending, your partners with your different stakeholders to create this type of lending product and support mechanism overall. And last thing I say is the technical assistance part is real, because it's not just about getting money to people, but it's about making sure the money is used in a productive way. That is the key ingredient to wealth generation. And what we saw with PPP is for many people who were fortunate enough to get it, and it was disproportionate how it was allocated. But let's say we saw many people who got PPP loans, EIDL loans, who it was a sugar rush because they didn't have the back end support. When we think about technical support, we don't think about just how do we get more loan dollars out there, right? And TA is just about being capital ready. We think about and so it's the pathway of how do we make people capital ready so we get more loan dollars. We think about is like how do we help support the entrepreneur, and a lot of our business support and technical assistance dollars happens on the backside of it, right? So as we do the loan, we do the relationship, we do the transaction, then we build the relationship.
Yes, yes. And I love how you're thinking about this on a systemic level. I'm curious your thoughts on what is one domino that you feel like moves some of the rest, right? This is such a complex environment, ecosystem, lots of different ways that people are coming at this. What do you feel like, okay, kind of a theory of change, right? That if we blank, then a lot of this would move. What would you say is one major opportunity zone, problem area, however you want to frame that?
So I don't follow the rules, so I'll give you two.
Okay, good.
Two for the price of one. First thing is the first dollar in. So many times when we think about the hardest loan to make to someone is the first loan.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to make that more accessible. What's so crazy, I think what we saw during the pandemic is that, we were really happy to do grants. It was like, here you go, $5,000, boom, fill out the simple form, $5,000, good luck, and I might contact you so we get quotes from our article, but other than that, you're good. But if we were to do a $3,000 loan, oh my God, we would ask you for a litany of stuff, and it's probably going to take you,
right, firstborn child, like
right, exactly.
right.
So I say, like, one of the things that makes people successful is that first dollar of, I think what Jessica Norwood says, like that believe in you money, like, hey, we'll do a $2,000 loan, low documentation, and we have to have the backing, like a decent loan loss reserve to do these type of dollars. But we almost look like a grant, like we'll do a $2,000 loan and the transaction creates the relationship. We'll do a $2,000 loan. Now, if you want to, go to that $10,000 loan, $50,000, then you need to, you got to start working, getting your financials tight. You got to start working your projections, and we're here to help you go through that process. But having these mechanisms in place to do these small dollar loans, and what it's going to prove out is most of the time, if you think about what is a good predictor of someone willing to pay you, being able to pay you back, is like, do they have the muscle memories? Have they ever managed a loan? Many of the people in our communities have money trauma, man. Like so that first dollar, like believing in you, making that loan, working with you to help you, support you, and paying it back, reporting it to the credit agencies, but having some right guardrails so you can help them boost their credit along the way. Like that is really key, and that's what's missing. It's hard, right? It's not done because it's hard, and it's a loss lose from a financial standpoint. A lot of people won't do it because you're not going to make any money off of it. But this is what's going to really open up that spigot. The second part to that.
Well, pause. I don't think you'd make that much money off it short term if you're looking at it like that. Correct. But the way you said about the transaction creates the relationship, I want to know, mindset wise, you have to be thinking long term that these people may, if it's a fit, come back and do some higher dollar loans where the money's actually made, but you've actually created more capacity for them to do that. So I think it depends on, to me, the lens, right? If you're thinking about short-term gains as an organization, I mean, you might be in the wrong business if you're in it to change things and you're trying to do some short-term stuff. But anyway, what are your quick thoughts on that, and then go on to the next one?
No, that's real talk. I mean, I think when we look at how we work with entrepreneurs, we look at it as a relationship, and we look at it as a long-term relationship. So we don't look at it as linear, as first thing you do is put them through a class, then you do some TA to make them capital ready, then you do a loan, then you push them up the nest. We know that this is circular. And like you said, many of the people we lend to, we're that first, second, and sometimes third loan before they're, positioned to go to more traditional capital sources. And a lot of times at that point, we have to start pushing them out the nest. One of our, we're becoming more intentional about lending to justice impacted individuals, or or justice involved individuals. And it's about, again, building that trust, building their confidence, giving them that first loan. And then now that they've told their story, now they know that we're truly advocates for them. The hard part is, like, we have one that has, taken the capital, used it to reform a house, sold the house for, a huge multiple, now he's doing 2 more homes, and he's technically he's ready. He's built equity for himself. Like, it's a success story, but now it's like pushing him into a lender is like, now he has to build that relationship all over again. So like you said, it's the relationship. And another thing I'll say is that the other side of it, and this goes into part 2 of your question, into part 2 of my answer, is that we need to have different pathways to do what we call that believe in you money, and give business owners the room to innovate and to fail, right? And we have to build that as part of our model. Like you said, protect our balance sheet, make sure we're sustainable. But we're seeing this dynamic where everybody now, at least in this space, a lot of people are speaking about scalability and growth and all this other cool stuff, right? And how do we make sure businesses can scale up? But we don't have the capital, the right type of capital to do it. Because the first thing we say is, okay, we want scalability and growth, so we need to come up with more VC money. And as we know, well, one, was it 99.5% of businesses are not going to be VC businesses.
Right.
Very point blank. And that's if you're white. I mean, if you look like us,
right.
I don't even know what that number is. They don't even keep track of that number. It's like we don't have a calculator that calculates that small yet. So it's a few more dots and zeros in there.
Yeah.
So now the other part of it is that, so going down that path, most growth is not going to be VC growth. So we have to come up with different capital solutions that allow people in our community to take the risk that they need to take, and to be willing to help them fail. Now, I think the VC model, one of the things that they do, which is great, which I borrow from, and the way I approach it is that if you think about VC funding, they absolutely take the believe in you approach. They say, you know what, you got a great idea, you're
strong team.
Strong team. Well, sometimes not even strong teams. Like, you're a bro. You got a good idea. So we're going to invest $1 million in you, and then we're going to give you a team. We're going to give you all the radical support. We're going to make all the connections. We're going to help you achieve your dream, right? And then if you fail, then it's cool. Then we're excited about the second one, because then you can take all the things you learned and apply to the second one. In the lending community, we do the opposite. It's like, you're looking a little bit unfamiliar. You want 25,000 of my money? Okay. Right. Well, then you need to go to 5 different classes. You need to go to talk to these 3 different people, and then come back. And then, we'll think about, I call it the Wizard of Oz effect, or We Black, the Wiz, right? Where it's like, it's like, you go through this whole concept of, you send the entrepreneur on this journey, and then along the way, they're supposed to pick up all the stuff that they need before they go talk to the Wiz. And that's a whole different thing. And then they have to go explain themselves to this CDFI that's up in the skyscraper. And then depending on who you talk to and how they feel that day, either they're going to give you a loan or may shout at you and send you on your way and steal all your confidence. When really, if you meet them where they are, you're helping them build what they need all along, right? So we take that approach. But anyway, the whole concept is that there is this need for this flexible and patient capital that's non-extractive, that is going to allow people in our communities to innovate and do it in a way. Innovation is sometimes linked to failure. And many of the businesses that we're thinking about aren't these deep tech companies. It may be a potentially tech-enabled company. It may be a company that wants to grow through getting big procurement opportunities. So they need to have, more flexible money. That term loan is just not going to do it for them. We're setting them up for failure if we do a term loan. So we have to think about, how do we change the way we deploy capital,
right,
that allows people in our community to innovate, take risk, without us being extractive, and with us already building into the fact that to help them succeed, we're going to need to give them radical support along the way. throughout their journey. And that's where I think that we are, like, that's another key component. Like, so being the first dollar in, and being able to work with people who have money trauma issues in many cases, being able to, make a quick loan decision, build in the loan loss reserves, where we need to do to get comfortable.
Yeah.
Work with them on the back end so they learn along the way, real time, real life, how to pay back a loan while they're building up their credit. So being there for them at that level. The second part of it is being able to provide flexible, patient capital that truly rewards and incentivizes scalability and growth. Term loans just weren't designed for that. Like, if you look at your finance books, they weren't. Like, we try to retrofit it and make it work, but that's not. So it creates a lot of discord. A lot of discomfort between the lender and borrower, and this power dynamic kicks in. VC is built for that, but it's built for a very small sliver. So we have to be for societal's VC if we're really trying to change our community. Last thing I'll say is that, many business owners who have those great ideas and come from our communities, they cannot afford to lose $25,000-$50,000. Right. That's the difference between them being homeless, right, or being, so they can't even afford to take the risk, and they stay in this hustle mindset because they don't have the flexibility. They stay hustling. Like, we say in Detroit hustles harder. We didn't do that because we wanted to wear a cute t-shirt. It's because it's a necessity. We had to get them things, do something to it, go out and sell it and double our money so we could do it all over again, right? But we don't leave room for people to get past hustle, and that comes from flexible and patient capital. So, like, most of the people we work with, they can't afford to innovate. They can't afford to take a risk. Like me and you, I know you're making a lot of money, Justin. So, you go out there, you can dollars in the weekend, right? I know you can borrow 100 bands. If I lost 50, I wouldn't be homeless. I'll probably be, sleeping on the couch. I'd be bedless because my wife would kick me out of the sleep on the couch, but I wouldn't be homeless. But a lot of people who do have those great ideas, they just don't have, no one believes in them. No one's giving them that flexible capital. Well, I shouldn't say no one, but this is where the need is. So those are two different things.
Well, there's no cushion. There's no support infrastructure to land on, right? And you're blowing my mind with this idea of applying VC believe in you dollar mindset, because they do. Like, the VC community, okay, we'll bet on you. We'll give you all of our network. We'll imagine if we did that as mission-driven lenders. You got access to our Rolodex, you got access to our training, you got access to whatever you need, and we're going to bet on you, a $5,000 bet or whatever those dollar amounts are. That mindset, I think, makes so much sense to me. All right, we're going to take a quick community break here. I want to know who else is joining us on LinkedIn. Hop in the chat. I'm loving to see some of the connections that are already being made here. Who is here? And make sure you have Paul Jones' brilliant mind here for the next few minutes. And so if you have any questions, make sure you drop them in the chat. I want to pivot in a different direction here and now talk to the entrepreneur community. We have a lot of our listeners that are current business owners. Mindset-wise, now you came at this from the entrepreneur community. I want to know how that informs your work, and then speak to the entrepreneurs who are on this journey right now. The piece that you mentioned at the top of the interview where you're saying, hey, I failed a bunch, and I said, awesome. And you're like, exactly. Specifically the piece on having room to try and grow, and what people call failure, which I don't even really believe in that word. I call it learning. But talk about your entrepreneur journey. Talk about, for the entrepreneurs, approaching this through the eyes of a lender, or being able to actually move this and gain traction in their business. What are the pieces of advice that you would have for our business owner listeners, especially here this Black Business Month?
Yeah. No, first, it's hard for me to overstate how much I not only appreciate what entrepreneurs are doing, but how much we as a society need you. Like, we need you to go out there and start this business, to take this risk, to grow the business, to grow your thing, grow your dream out. I think statistically they say over 50% of the jobs that are created in the private sector come from small businesses, or 50%. And that's if you think about that, and the ones that our small businesses are doing are in our community. So it's not like, oh, you got to go out and drive across town, like creating jobs in our community, and those dollars start to circulate. Like, that's all our entrepreneurs. So my first thing is, understand that you are the solution. You're not the problem. And if you ever talk to a CDFI, if you ever talk to a support organization, if they start talking to you like you're the problem, then that's a severe misalignment on their part. So you need to have that confidence and swag going into the situation, because you're out there putting it all on the line. So that's the first piece I would say. The second thing I would say is that there are resources out there. I know it sounds like really almost cliche. It's like, go out there and find the resources, but they are out there, and you got to seek them out. Like in Detroit, hit me up. We're your resource, but we're not in every city yet. No, I'm just kidding. But with the African American Alliance of Black CEOs, what I can tell you is that we collectively and individually, we are built to make sure you are successful. So start by looking at our Rolodex, looking at the map, and figuring out which one of us are in your community. Second thing I would say is that just understand realistically what are you comfortable with? Like, what's your pathway to success? Some people may want to have their work as a gig economy worker, and they just need help invoicing and paying their taxes. Some other people may want to go public one day and be an IPO. Don't let people shove you into a certain box, right? You determine how much risk you want to take, what type of velocity of growth, how fast you want to grow, what you're willing to do, what you're willing to sacrifice to do it. Because I sacrificed 10 years
to you.
Exactly. Determine what success looks like to you, and then find a way to articulate that to the people who are going to help you on your journey. Because otherwise, they're going to project to you what success looks like. They're like, okay, I'm gonna help you out. In order to meet my grant goal, you need to create 5 jobs. Like, well, I don't know if I want to hire 5 people. You know what I mean? So like, you got to be able to just be able to determine what success looks like to you. So so seek out the resources. The capital is there, right? So most lenders want you to have some skin in the game, but you don't have to have all your skin in the game, right? Other people are leveraging dollars. You should be able to as well. I mean, that's what we got dollars for. So, don't try to think outside of the hustle mindset, and try to think about what it's going to take you to grow a business. Because if you don't, you're going to be stuck in the business, and all you're going to do is create another job for yourself. And that's not economic liberation, back to your initial question. So think about, how do you create wealth for yourself and attract the resources? And we out there, we got your back.
How do you break out of that hustle mindset? Like, what does that look like to move from, job just over broke, even in your own business, self-employed, to business owner mindset? What are some of the key levers? I was going to say some. I was going to ask for one, but I know you give me more than one. So.
No, I mean, at the end of the day, and again, this is a very short answer, but it takes intentionality. So when you go into this approach, determine how much you want to make, how much you personally want to make out of this. I had one business owner that I used to consult with, and his whole goal was like, I know in order to pay my daughter's tuition, do everything I want to do, and live, I need to make $100,000 a year. Like, that's how much like whatever it costs, salary, draw, whatever it is, like that's what I need. Right, so then we did deconstruct this. Said, you guys sell to this many businesses. This is what your pricing needs to be. Like, this is how much profit you need to make per, widget or whatever. He was in the services business. So the cool thing about him is, like, once he had that intentionality, he did it. And the cool thing about him is that he had a lazy nature, and lazy was good in the sense in that he was like, I want to do that, but I don't want to work, right? I want to hire people. So he started pricing it. It's like a hire, so he could hire his team, So then he could just oversee and took himself out the picture, and he was working like 10 hours a week,
Love it.
making the money that he had. Well, it was intentional because when he first started off, he was doing every job, and he had to intentionally say how many clients I have to serve at what price point. So it takes this level of financial acumen. But I don't even want to call it that. It's like this level of awareness, like doing the back of the envelope calculations. We talk about most small business owners don't want to do projections. Yeah, because if they're just doing for lenders as a homework assignment, it has no meaning to them.
Right. For what? This was my problem with high school, Paul. Because I'm like,
you're taking it back, man. You got some. This is not therapy session, Justin.
Right. Oh my God. Oh, right. Wrong one. That's on Friday mornings. Tuesday morning, not therapy.
So so it's just the intentionality, and then being able to have that self-awareness and go into a situation like building what it is you want to create for yourself.
Yes. Love it. All right. We have a question coming in from Marcellus Weaver. How does a BSO with a sunsetting program provide strategic services and referrals for business owners? So it sounds like, trying to move them on, move them along. Thanks for your question, Marcellus. And I think, excited to have Paul for this question.
How's the BSO with sunsetting? Could you read one more time for me?
Yeah. So I'll bring it back up here. Business support organization with a sunsetting program, essentially move the business owners along, right, and get them to where they need to go. And I think this is a larger sustainability question that I want us to dig into is, an ideal program moves people out of the program and to somewhere else, right? Not just, so that you can continue to get grant dollars for the work. The idea is that you're working yourself out of some of these pieces. So talk about this idea, if you would, for Marcellus.
Yeah, I wonder if that's the Marcellus I know. Hopefully, if he's in Detroit, what's up, Marcellus, or in Michigan. But anyway, that's a great question. And I think that goes back to the mindset that a lot of times you say it takes a village to raise a kid. It takes an ecosystem to support a small business owner, right? And irrespective if your programming is sunsetting or if you know what your spot is, but when you have business owners that either like financially graduate from the services you can offer them, plugging into your local ecosystem and being aware. Like I would challenge you, and not just you, Marcellus, but like people in the call, especially lenders, to truly make it their prerogative to know the different business support services organizations are out there, develop relationships so you can do warm handoffs. There's nothing more frustrating for a business owner than have to go out and prove themselves and tell their story all over again, or getting a referral that's just not right for them because you just get a list of people to talk to. But understanding what the business owner's pathway or journey is, and then having enough, there it is, what up though? So having enough insight and market intelligence to know and have good relationships with other business support organizations so you can make that warm handoff and knowing they'll be in good hands. So I hopefully that answers the question. If not, hit me up. We can talk about offline and maybe you can send some people my way.
Yeah. Well, I do love the idea of the relationship piece. And I think that's something that far too little time is spent on is on the ecosystem connectivity. You were talking about before with these business owners, hey, the resources are out there, and they hear that all the time, but navigating those resources is awful, right? Like they have no idea where to start, who to talk to. They reach out, they don't get an email back. And someone like Paul, someone like you, Marcellus, making a thoughtful and intentional and relevant introduction goes a long way. And then the follow-up, this is, just a little add-on here that I've seen, the follow-up to make sure that whoever you sent this person to actually got in touch with the person. That's something that I see, if I was going to pick one domino, is a little missing piece to follow up with the entrepreneur. Hey, did they get back to you? And then actually hold the ecosystem accountable. Like I sent you somebody, at the very least, send them on. Like, let's make this an expectation that at the very least point them in another right direction. But you got to get back to these people because we're all in it to actually help these business owners, entrepreneurs win, feed their families, grow what they want to grow. So that's my little 2 cents in there, maybe 5.
There we go.
I love it. All right, so we're coming to the top of the hour here. Paul, what is one thing that very few people know about you? I've been starting to ask this question, and it's been really fun to see where this goes. So something that, you can say here, but that very few people actually know about Paul Jones.
So you guys gonna keep this a secret, right? I don't know how many people are on.
Yeah. I mean, this is totally. I mean, it's not even live. It's not,
exactly, right.
It's not even live for
repeat gossip. So
millions of people on LinkedIn. Right.
No, so yeah. One thing that I guess very few people know, different dimensions. So people know me in the finance space, but like I said, most of my life I've been an entrepreneur. But the other part of it is that I'm just trying to do the math in my head. Like I lived and worked in like 4 or 5 different continents, and some of it corporate, now entrepreneurship stuff. But it's it just provides a different perspective, like to not only our work that we're doing, locally, but how we're performing globally. So so that's that's one of the things I just throw out there, like, just having lived literally around the world is something a lot of people don't know.
I love this. Tell us a little bit more about this global perspective, right? Because this show, we're focused very much on the Black American experience. That's where we're leaning into Black liberation here, CDFIs who are doing work in the United States. But talk about what this global perspective adds, and something that you maybe see on the horizon from a global perspective.
Yeah. So first, I would say that we have a lot of work to do, but I would add that we also, the intentionality and the commitment of people, like the fact that we acknowledge that there's needs and then we broadcast that is really critical. And then we're advocating for more resources. Certain administrations are more likely to provide resources. Not going to go into that, but you know what I mean? Like, but anyway, all that narrative and discussions out there. And I think that doesn't happen in most countries. Like one place, my wife is from Brazil. I lived in Brazil for a while. There's more what we would define more, people of color in Brazil, but they don't. I mean, like in that context, people just debate about what is Black, like what. So it's hard to advocate for resources when you don't openly define the challenges in the issue, right? I think that, we need to make sure that we don't lose sight of the systemic challenges that are still here. But I think that we are, we're probably one of the more progressive countries in terms of understanding, and probably because of our dark history, we're probably one of the more oppressive countries. So we have one of the more progressive solutions. Again, we still have a lot of work to do. I'm not saying we're close to it. The wealth gap is still real, but we're still there. And I just give, again, a shout out to the Alliance and the work that you guys are doing. Like, it's so important to have this, like you, Justin, Angela, all of the Hall of Famers you see walking down the hallways of the Alliance. Actually, I've never been to Alliance's office, but going to committee sessions, seeing Linwood, Ed Whitfield, shout out to my girl, Renee Dawson out in Minneapolis. Like, this is like, it's so much level, like at our level, just having like that intentionality.
Yeah,
it hits different when you are a Black-led organization. I'm gonna say it. I mean, it's real talk. Like, I just give you this one little thing, man. I love speaking analogies, but there was like this situation where some of the farm animals were sitting around. They were talking about debating on who contributed most and who was most committed to like the farmer having a great breakfast. So
okay,
the cow kicks it off, and he's talking about how the milk, is really difficult, but it's all worth it, in the spirit of having a great breakfast is the key ingredient and all sort of stuff. And chicken gets indignant. He's like, what? My eggs, you know how much it takes it. So they're going at it, and the chicken is going to, give him his, he's on his platform. So around it's time to pig, he just shakes his head, turns around, and says, you think you guys are vested? You know what I'm saying? It's my ass on the line here. Sorry. But I feel like, I mean, all stakeholders are different, but when you are a Black-led organization, and serving, communities, that look like it just hits different, right? And then the support and infrastructure you guys, provide the fellowshipping. Yeah, I say fellowship, not networking. We fellowship when we get
We connect, we fellowship. We don't really network, you know.
That's right. No, so anyway, so that's huge. Like, so I think from a global perspective, like we're more intentional about the work. We're more committed to solving the issues, but it's through the leadership of you guys who like the Linwoods, rest in peace, and that's like these great leaders, like they're moving the needle, these unsung heroes. So yeah, so I think we're just, we're really grateful and fortunate to have people like you making this stuff happen.
Man, I love it. Thank you. And I mean, shout out to Linwood. This man got to keep getting his flowers. You talk about committed, like really putting it on the line and doing it. I mean, I think this is his third retirement, quote unquote. And this is how hard he's going now with the Alliance, with all the work he's done with Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund and all this type of stuff to really move the needle. And every platform I've ever seen him on, he's like, yeah, no, that's not going to work. This is yeah. And anyway, so I love that I get to have
100%
that leadership. Very last question. I know we're getting to the top of the hour, and I promise everybody we get out of here by 1. What is next? What's on the horizon? Where do you see? You've been here 7 months at ProsperUs. Where do you see your vision for the future?
Yeah, it's those two things. Like, we are getting more into small dollar loans, but it's about, again, that radical support and holistic radical support. So it's not just the capital, but it's the non-extractive capital, and it is the radical technical assistance or business support for businesses after you get the capital. Like, how do we build that? And that's what we're exploring. We're exploring how we do it for ProsperUs and how we make those type of services available for the ecosystem. So having the conversations, and a lot of funders and philanthropic partners are about it, right? I mean, you have to, if you ask, okay, if that's what you try to do, then then let's figure it out. But you have to, one, be intentional about making, I call it democratizing innovation growth opportunities for our communities. And that's the next level of how we do what we do. And we do it. I think we just have to have more intentionality and more infrastructure and more dollars to make sure that we can do that work.
Right. Wishing you all the best. The Alliance is in your corner.
You, man. Thanks for sharing this platform. You guys are doing great things, and thanks for letting me hang out with you and all of our other LinkedIn friends out there. Hit me up. You got my contact. You're on LinkedIn, obviously. So if there's anything you guys want to chop it up with, I love to share and explore and collaborate.
Yes, I love it. And shout out to everybody who made the time to be here with us. You could have been anywhere else, but you chose to be here. The one ask that I have, well, 2, because, I asked Paul for 1. He gave me 2. So now I'm going to ask me for 1, and I'm going to give you 2. All right. So 2 asks is connect with Paul. Make sure you're following the work that they're doing at ProsperUs Detroit. The second one, share this interview because it multiplies the effect and the eyeballs that get on Paul and his work. And we want to make sure that he's getting in front of the right folks. So share this interview with your network, and that's it. And other than that, just keep changing the world. Okay, 3, keep changing the world. You're doing a great job. All right, Paul, thank you again.
Thanks,
LinkedIn, thank you, and we'll see you all soon.
Appreciate you.
Is Black money.
About economic liberation and freedom.
Critical conversations to invigorate our communities through Black-led CDFIs.
But most importantly, we want people to create wealth.
When we look at our communities, we still see a big disinvestment.
Going from resourceful to resourced.
CDFIs have that high touch. They understand their customers. They know how to reach out to those customers. They stay in touch with those customers.
We are trying to create job makers and not just job takers.
Yeah, I've even heard it said recently that great leaders don't lead from the top down, they lead from the bottom up because they're actually lifting everybody.
We have to do more than just being a regular lender.
Don't give me this story about if I teach you how to fish.